And these are the speakers for today. This will be our agenda. We are not covering all the topics or all the domains. So, we are covering the important key announcements and the key domains today. Mm. I'll be talking about analytics. My name is Meera Balasbramainiam. I'm a senior solutions architect with AWS and a data analytics specialist. I'll be highlighting the key analytics announcements that were made at reInvent 2025. One of the major announcements was the SageMaker Unified Studio serverless notebook. For those of you that are not familiar with SageMaker Unified Studio, it is a single data and AI development environment that brings together AWS data, analytics, and AI/ML services into one unified platform. So, if you are working with data, you know how painful it is to switch between tools trying to do all these. And SageMaker Unified Studio provides a unified workspace to do all these. And SageMaker Notebook is an IDE that's native to your SageMaker Unified Studio browser environment. It brings a new notebook experience within a unified workspace. It is serverless and it is polyglot, which means it supports multiple languages. You can write SQL, Python, and Spark all in one place. No need to leave the SageMaker Unified Studio or switch between different tools. And here is the best part, there is zero infrastructure to manage. It automatically starts up and scales to whatever your task needs. No provisioning, no tuning, it just works. So you keep all the immediate data access you already have, plus you get SageMaker Unified Studio data connectors to pull in external data when you need it. It is great for organizations that want to bring their data engineers, analysts, and data scientists together on a common tool set without dealing with complex governance headaches. So, whether you are running a quick interactive query or massive petabyte scale jobs, you can use one UI where you query your data, run your Python code, you develop Spark jobs, train your ML models, visualize results, and work with AI, all from one place with second level billing and no infrastructure to babysit. The next announcement I want to highlight is the SageMaker catalog automatic data classification. So we have relaunched what you knew as Data Zone, and it's now called SageMaker Catalog. It's fully integrated into SageMaker Unified Studio. And here is what's cool. It provides automated data classification that suggests business glossary terms while you are publishing your data. And how does it work? SageMaker analyzes your table metadata and schema using Bedrock's large language models to recommend relevant terms from your organizational business glossary that you provide. And it automatically identifies both functional terms and sensitive data. It reduces manual tagging effort, improves metadata consistency, and makes data way more discoverable than your business users for your business users. And there is no more manual classification headaches. It's all automated during publishing. And we have been working with heavy EMR users, and the Spark upgrade process has come a long way. Those who are working on EMR, you know how intense the Spark upgrade process is. And Amazon poured all our experience into a new AI agent that specializes in the entire upgrade process, testing, iterating, monitoring, and validating Spark upgrades on your EMR cluster. And the agent has a conversational interface through your MCP client that recommends API changes and behavioral modifications in PySpark and Scala applications. Right now, we support Spark 2.4 to 3.5, though you can expect that to expand. And it upgrades dependencies and validates with multiple checkpoints, including functional correctness and data processing accuracy. And because checking known issues and validating changes is the longest part of upgrades. This agent eliminates the majority of time from these processes for most EMR upgrades. And will it work perfectly every time? No, but it will handle the bulk of upgrades and get them validated fast. So the next couple of announcements are related to S3 tables. As a refresher, Amazon S3 tables offers a fully managed service for Apache Iceberg tables. This was made GA at reInvent 2024 and has been very popular with customers. And with S3 Iceberg data, some customers don't use Glue data catalog as their primary catalog. A lot of customers use partner tools like Databricks or Snowflake. Basically, they store Iceberg data directly in S3 tables in their account, but the catalog management is handled by Databricks or Snowflake. And when you are trying to let different systems, use cases, or teams access data across multiple catalogs, that complicates your data engineering work. And some systems demand you to replicate and pay for all that data duplication. For those customers who want to use or reuse existing AWS compute like Redshift, EMR, Athena, Glue, or Spark, they can now use Glue Catalog Federation for remote Iceberg catalogs. And here is how it works. So at query execution, Glue pulls the data latest table metadata directly from the remote data catalog. So and it does it in real time and it reads the data directly from S3. This works over HTTPS, VPC, or via proxies. And these federated catalogs are lake formation registered. So you get fine-grained row, column, and cell level permissions. And all of these is without moving your S3 data around. So this lets you use AWS resources to access data managed by another catalog with no replication and no complex data management. And if you are someone storing your data in S3 tables, this is a very important announcement. You can create materialized views for your EMR, Athena, and Glue jobs to query against from your existing Iceberg tables. You can go across multiple tables, multiple databases, and even multiple accounts if you create cross-account roles. You create a new target bucket, and then when you query, you can query like normal, even against the original tables, and Spark will determine if it needs to query the materialized view. The smallest refresh time is 1 hour, but you can use a command refresh materialized view or even configure that to trigger more frequently. You can also give access to the materialized view through lake formation, but not give access to the underlying tables. So any engineer who sees a common query being run consistently against data that doesn't change that often will find this a simple fix to help their solution. It's also an interesting way to obscure some data but give full access to a derived table for your users. And some queries are run often and they are expensive, and it would be easier on your compute and cheaper overall for the results of that query to remain cached, even if it is across multiple databases. So the typical method for this is for traditional databases is to use a materialized view. And this is now a concept you can use with data in S3 to provide that data. And for the right use cases, it will save a lot of money. And as you all might know, OpenSearch is AWS's open source search and analytics engine for searches like log analytics, real-time monitoring, and full text search. Now, OpenSearch's new agentic search provides an agent-driven search capability. Users can ask questions in natural language like find red cars under $30,000 or men's blue shirts. And the agent interprets the intent and generates the OpenSearch DSL query automatically, handling all of the filters, Boolean logic, and sorting, and then executes and returns the results with transparent summaries of the decision process. And you can even connect it to external MCP servers. And agentic search enables more users to effectively get results from OpenSearch without needing deep understanding of index fields or OpenSearch DSL. They can just ask in plain English. And the last analytics announcement I'm going to talk about is the Athena capacity reservation. Uh, Auto scaling. So, Athena capacity reservation was already there, and it provides customers with dedicated serverless processing capacity for Athena queries. So, you reserve a specific amount of capacity for an hourly fee and assign your query and work groups to that capacity. And the new announcement is that Athena capacity reservations. So it has an auto scaling capability that monitors your DPU utilization and scales capacity up or down based on your usage. So this is designated for larger and sustained changes, not immediate spikes. You can also now set DPU settings to specific min and max levels of capacity to allow for cost and speed control. So you define the boundaries and auto scaling operates within those limits. And organizations running business critical workloads in Athena will benefit from this. And it provides fine grained control over capacity usage and query concurrency, plus auto scaling of capacity reservations. And it helps you deliver consistent performance while reducing the costs associated with overall provisioning. So you are not paying for capacity you don't need, but you are also not under provisioning when demand increases. So that's those are the key analytics announcements that I wanted to talk about, and I'll pass it on to Ananya to talk about the
Yeah.
foundation models.
First of all, thank you, Meera. I just wanted to make sure I am audible to everyone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds
Yes.
good.
Yes, we hear
Okay.
you.
Perfect. Thank you. Again, thank you. Let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Ananya Thakur, and I'm a senior solutions architect. Work with Meera and all other folks who are in the call. And today, I'm happy to present the AI ML foundation models. Can you please move on to the next slide, please, Meera?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. All right. We have all heard the buzzwords, right? It's like, last couple of years been, everyone has been talking about AI ML models and, all different large language models that, different organizations and entities have, brought to us. And it has been, revolutionizing every time there is a new model out there in the market. And the one that I'm going to, talk about today are some of the highlighted models. I mean, there are so many out there in the market right now. But for the sake of time, I'm just going to pick up some of the top models that were actually announced part of the last reInvent, which I feel like will be very beneficial and helpful for anyone who is listening to this. Let's start with that. So we know that Anthropic has been a pioneer in AI research models and bringing up all the latest and greatest frontier models to everyone. So back in November 2025, they actually launched the Opus 4.5 model officially, and it is available in our platform, which is the Bedrock platform. Of course. For those who don't know what Bedrock is our serverless platform where we host a lot of foundation models coming across from different industries and different providers. So it is completely secure and safe environment for you to be able to use and deploy those models. We have been, of course, as Anthropic has been experimenting and launching their new models, we have been using those and putting those out in our Bedrock foundation model lists. And 4.5 is basically just the next step out of the way. It basically is the next frontier model if you compare with its own predecessors of Opus 4.1 or even Sonnet model 4.5. It outperforms both of them. It is actually also 3x cheaper than Opus 4.1, and it is actually right now the industry leading models, which actually has bigger context window and cheaper, and it can do groundbreaking tasks for software engineers, software architects, programmers, anyone who is looking to build like agentic solution or a multi-step workflow, or trying to create a whole automation of their business process. This actually comes up on the benchmarking above 80% of the SWE benchmark. So basically it gives a much more confident responses in terms of that. And also it excels in agentic workflows and long horizon planning, superior performance on that, right? So from the technicality standpoint, it has a 200K token windows, input output limit of around 64,000 token responses. It supports both text and image inputs. That's pretty much it for that. From the cost perspective, it is like $5 per million tokens for input, and $25 million for output tokens. Can you please move on to the next, please? Thank you. All right, so switch back to our own model. So this is Amazon's first party model. This is the model that we built in our own, and we kind of put it in the our Bedrock marketplace. So which is basically our place where, yeah, I just explained before, is where all our models exist. So just to talk about that, I want to use some of the, first of all, like give you a very basic explanation of the differences between all the models in the Nova family, and then maybe just give you a kind of a analogy to connect you easily for that. So the Nova 2 Lite is basically a cost-effective reasoning with a 100 million token context window, and it has a built-in tools like core interpreter, web grounding, example for that, right? The Pro is a very complex multi-step agentic tasks across all modalities. It's ideal for complex tasks like agentic coding, long-range planning, and sophisticated problem solving, where like the high model accuracy is very essential. The model can also serve as a teacher for knowledge distillation, for like a creating a distillation model, transferring those knowledge to the smaller, more efficient student models. So those are like just few, name a few, right? From the Sonic perspective, it is basically the real-time conversational AI, and it also has like emotional intelligence, speech to speech, and has capabilities as of now for 7 different languages. The Omni is basically the industry's first all-in-one model, combining multimodal reasoning, image generation, and speech understanding of 10 different languages, replacing what like the traditionally required three separate models. It can now perform all of this in one model. Um, so again, those are like all technical terminologies. I just wanted to give a very simple explanation of like which, just to differentiate between all these models. Just imagine like the Nova Light as like a general contractor who is ready to take up any construction work in your house. Like it can do like very cost effectively, like day-to-day house building, construction, repair, renovation, simple task. It is very efficient, fast, and it can consider that as like a very general contractor task. The Pro, where is a master specialist. Like for example, if you want to tackle a multi-phase project, kind of a building renovation, historic building renovation, a commercial development, things which needs a very specific specialized skills. So you can consider that as like a specialized contractor kind of a thing. The Sonic is basically a communicator. It's like it is very good at like coordination, speaking with multiple people, making sure that everything is naturally flowed, project lifecycle management, things like that. The Omni is essentially the visionary, right? It can act like as an all different roles, like architect, designer, engineer in a given construction project time frame. It can do blueprints, photos, sketches, anything of that sort. So that's pretty much the Omni. So yeah, can you please move on to the next step? I mean, next slide, please. All right, so what is Nova Forge? In simple terms, Nova Forge is essentially a place for any enterprises to come and create their own foundational models using some of the curated data that Amazon provides, and putting their own enterprise data on top of that, and kind of go through this process that is defined in this picture. And you can basically do checkpointing in each of these pre-training, mid-training, and post-training phase. And then you could inject your enterprise data and the curated data that Amazon provides and build your own custom model, fine-tuned or whatever way you build it, and then you can run it for your own business. What are the benefits? The benefits are, like, first of all, if you take any of the industry wide, like the models that provide by third party providers, or any other models, they come with a lot of cost. And to train your own model, it's like it's a lot of cost, right? So with a fraction of the cost, you can actually build this model using this Nova Forge platform. So it gives people for who really want to build their own model and use it for specialized tasks. It is very good for data with, like, for example, you have your healthcare data, life sciences data, or any data that is very proprietary for you, and you want to like create a ground up model. It is very good for those people who want to use that. Can you move on to the next slide, please? All right, what is Nova Act? Nova Act is essentially a place where you can simulate or create like a production UI. You can, like, whatever, in the internet, there are so many different UIs out there right now. There are if you want agents to be able to go place an order for you, which is currently hosted in a restaurant UI, for example, a web application. Or there are, like, you want someone to go and an agent to go and book a flight ticket for you, or look up a weather for a specific date and time, or to take some actions for you, which is currently in an environment where humans can go and do that. So it can actually script all of those on behalf of you in a kind of a programming slash plain simple English terms. And then it can go and you can go and automate that, and make it execute for you, right? So essentially, this will be helpful for organizations and businesses who is willing to automate their test cases to make sure that everything is working fine before they put code in production. Or they want some agents to be able to automate some of those tasks. So it's very helpful for that. So to accomplish this task, we have, of course, the Nova Act SDK, which is basically a framework, or a language, or a piece of library that you can use and to create all your tasks, and then put your some of the instructions in plain simple English, and then automate it. So it pretty much solves some of those problems that currently agent needs to take action on. And it helps, like, anything that is out there in the internet, it can mimic those and try to take actions for you. It can run on things like our agent core platform and any other console IDE and extension, and also in AWS console. Can you move on to the next slide, please? All right, so we spoke about our own models. We spoke about the Anthropic models. Now, this is where we are going to talk about some of the other open weight models that is out there in Bedrock. So, as part of the last reInvent, we have actually worked with 4 additional model providers, and added, like Minimax AI, Moonshot AI, NVIDIA, and Google. And we have actually added uh, 18 new open weight models into our Bedrock platform. For example, Google, if you can see, like it's the whole 18 model list is out there. I mean, just to name few, like Mistral, all large three families are there. Again, this what does this help? That this gives the user a choice of selecting based on what task they want to accomplish, what businesses they want to run. Based on that, they can go and pick and choose a specific model and use it like seamlessly, and you can switch your models as and when you see fit, because Bedrock gives you the interoperability. For example, today you are trying to test with Mistral model, and you see that tomorrow you have another use case, or you see like tomorrow and there is another model that fits better for your use case. You could just seamlessly switch models, and it will just work fine without any kind of code changes from your side. So that gives you that ability to do that. um, Next slide, please. Okay, with that, let me switch it over to Salil. He's going to take you over to the developer tools section. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ananya. I hope everyone is enjoying this session so far. I'm Salil Behara. I am a solutions architect with AWS, and I have got the next 15 minutes where I would be covering this section on developer tools. My goal is that by the end of this session, everyone has a clear understanding of how AWS is fundamentally changing the way we are building, the way we are modernizing, and the way we are operating our software. I know that title says, developer tools, but trust me, this is a lot more than just tools. These are like, groundbreaking agentic AI services that has the ability to pretty much act like your teammates and not just tools, right? So think of this as as I go through this presentation, right, with each of the slides, think of this as your specialized colleagues who can work 24/7. They will never get tired, never complain, never ask for a hike, and they will get smarter every single day. Can you move to the next slide, please? So before I do a deep dive on Kiro powers, I just want to see how many of you are aware of Kiro. Have anyone played with Amazon Kiro or know what Amazon Kiro is? Just give me a thumbs up in the chat. Perfect, Emily. Great. So just for others, I'll just quickly say what Kiro is. Kiro is our AI-powered agentic ID or integrated development environment, which is basically designed to transition or take your ideas from concept to production using spec-driven development. So you'd be thinking like, oh, so okay, so this is another cursor. It's actually not. It's a lot more than some of those ID tools, which are agentic ID tools, which are available. Kiro, as I said, is more like a teammate because once you give it access, it can understand your entire code base. Just not the files you are currently working on. It can integrate with Jira. It can take complete ownership of your development task. It works very autonomously. You basically can assign work. You go grab a coffee, and by the time you come, your work is done. So a lot of benefits are there, and we can cover Kiro in a separate session if you all like. But yeah, as I said, Kiro, think of this as a AI powered software development agent, which is built on the same technology Amazon uses internally for like thousands of tens of thousands of its developers, and now it's basically available for general public. But like as I said, every like even the smartest teammate, it sometimes require access to specialized knowledge, right? And that is what Kiro powers is. So think of Kiro power as a shareable knowledge package, so something which you can just plug in and out. To give you an example, you will see that a lot of this agentic ID or code auto code generators, you'll see they do a really poor job when doing UI development or when they are doing API development and such, right? And maybe you already have a design system which you have created using Figma. So how do you let your tool know that to use Figma for all your UI designs? And that is where Kiro comes in. So with Kiro powers, the best part is, as I said, it's a plug and play, right? So what you can do is in your code, like when you're doing the spec driven development, you can just say, hey, if you're building this UI, use Figma. And Kiro basically treats those as wake words. So when you say Figma, it knows that, okay, now I need to go back and plug in the Figma specialized knowledge packages. So it will integrate the MCP servers to get all the access, the best practices, code samples, and all of that. And it'll go ahead, perform the task, and when the task is done, it's going to unplug it. So it's going to remove all of that from your context. So what it basically does is it avoids any kind of context poisoning. So your context stays light, your agents perform much better, much faster, right? So that is what Kiro powers it. As I say, think of this as specialized agents which can come and do specialized things, like be it UI development, be it API development, be it database development and such. So moving on to the next one, please. So the next question is, using Kiro and all, we can do and build stuff, right? But how do you scale that? And that is where Kiro autonomous agents comes in. So think of this like, if in a physical team, if you have to scale something, right, you got a big feature, big project, and you want to scale it, what do? You basically get more team members, you start assigning them work, and then you basically let them go work it out, and then you review and deploy, right? So that is exactly what it's going to do with the Kiro autonomous agents. That is where instead of teammates, like as I said, treat agents as your teammates. So you will have multiple agents go, where you actually define what your target state would be, right? So instead of giving it smaller task, you basically give it an entire feature and say, hey, this is the feature, this is the end result I need, you go and figure out, or you ask the agent to figure out how to get there, and the agent will work autonomously to uh, derive that as to how we can build it, and it will go ahead and build that. As I said, some of the other benefits is cross repo scope, right? So your this agents, autonomous agents, it can actually make changes cross repo. So you don't have to limit yourself in cross repo, right? In when one repository, many times you have orders which is dependent on invoices and whatnot, right? So all of that, if you're making a feature which spans across multiple repos, it can go ahead and do that as well. The third is, the biggest thing is the persistent storage. I mean, it remembers everything. Every pull request, it made the changes, you provided code review comments, you open new issues, new issue discussions. It keeps track of everything. It learns from it, and it gets better with every interaction. And the last is, as I said, it gets better with every interaction. So you can now, with autonomous agent, you can just simply assign a feature, you go focus on something else, come over the weekend, and then you'll see that the entire work is done. And the best part is, it's ready for your review. It's like, it works within the guardrails which you have specified. So if you have your own coding standards, your security best practices and such, it complies with all of that. Can I move to the next one, please? Okay, so we talked about all the changes or things which will help developers, but again, that's not one part. That's just one part of it, right? Then comes the operations, because when you deploy at scales, you are also going to get issues at scale. So how do you address that? I mean, I'm pretty sure no one in this call, likes to wake up at 3 a.m. Get a pager that the production is down, right? So that is where AWS DevOps agent will come in. This is a AI powered SRE engineer or SRE teammate, again, who can, works 24/7. It monitors your system. And if there is any errors or any issues, it will investigate, right? So, and the best part here is, it just doesn't look at one data source. So it just doesn't rely on AWS native services. It can correlate or collect data from, say, CloudWatch, from Dynatrace, Datadog, Prometheus, Grafana, whatever you have, right? It can integrate with all of that. It can also integrate with, GitHub Actions. It can look at your deployment history, your CloudTrail logs, your application metrics, and all of that. So now just imagine this scenario, right? Like initially, like what would have happened is, somebody deploys something at 2 p.m., 2:15, the error rate spikes. Traditionally, what would have happened is somebody goes the on call, they wake up at 2 a.m. and at 2:15, they start looking at the different logs, they start looking at the recent deployments, they start to investigate all the dependencies and such. It takes a long time to identify what the issue is and resolve it. But the DevOps agent will actually go ahead and do it in minutes. So what it'll do is it'll again, as I said, collate data from all the different sources, and it'll do a root cause analysis. But at the same time, it will also give you recommendation as to how you can prevent this things from happening in the future, right? So with this DevOps agent, what happens is we bring down our mean time to resolution, which can go down from hours to minutes, and that is the major difference between what we call is a minor blip versus a major incident. Move on, please. Perfect. So we touched upon developers, we touched upon operations. Now the question is, okay, what about the broader organization? What kind of tools they have? That is where Amazon Quick Suite comes into picture. So Amazon Quick Suite is basically designed for knowledge workers, not just developers, but your business folks, your product teams, and all of them. What this does is, as you can see, it has got certain features which we have listed, like 6 different features. But at the heart of it, you see at the very bottom where you see the company data. So we have something called spaces. That is where you basically organize all your files, dashboards, data sources. So it has got like 40 plus data connectors. It can connect to SharePoint. If you have just data stored on OneDrive, it can do that. Google Drive. I mean, it can connect to tons of stuff, right? And it can get all the context and everything. So now you can, once you have every context and spaces, you can go ahead and build custom AI agents or the chat agents on top of it, right? And then this chat agents will have access to all the business knowledge. You can basically share it across teams, and everyone benefits. The next is the research. Now, this is very, very, very powerful, right? I mean, as you can see, it has got access to Bedrock models as well as the web search. What it can do is it can do a deep dive analysis on any topic, right? And can create a very comprehensive professional report. A report which would have taken you, days, if not weeks. It could now be done within minutes. It's an excellent, excellent feature. Then QuickSight, this is something you might be familiar with. This is our BI and data visualization layer, so I've not spent a lot of time there. Next is flows. This is where you can automate all your repetitive tasks with predefined steps and basically no coding required. You just tell it in English, like what needs to be done, and you just can automate all your repetitive tasks. And then automate, it takes it a step further. This is for more complex multi-step workflows, and this, as it says, it has the potential of transforming your entire business process. Next slide, please. Okay, so we talked a lot about all the cloud capabilities and such, but the question now again is, like, in a lot of customers, they have bulk of their applications still running on premises, and that is where there is a lot of technical debt. How many of you, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you in this calls, have already faced issues like version upgrades across Java, Python, Node, or you are doing framework migrations from, say, Angular to React, or language translations and such, or even architecture decomposition, right? Like taking the monolith, breaking it down into microservices and such. So that is where the whole transform custom comes into picture. So what this is basically what we call is a weapon against that technical debt. It can automate your entire code modernization, and it's more than a simple find and replace. This is a very intelligent transformation. Currently we support a lot of things, from Lambda upgrades to version upgrades across Java, Python. We can move from runtime migrations from x86 to Graviton support. It can do language translations and such. So Amazon Custom, again, if you are looking for reducing your technical debt, this is a great place to start. Move on, please. And I quickly cover three other big things, which is VMware. A lot of customers have VMware, and with the VMware licensing cost increases, they are looking at opportunities to migrate out. But the thing is, they have thousands and thousands of servers running on VMware, and it's always a big effort to try and figure out what will be the best way to migrate, right? You have to understand or analyze these workloads, understand all the complexities, the dependencies, then you have to create migration plan, you have to move the network over. So that is where, we wanted to give you the ability where you can use this agentic AI service to modernize your VMware workloads at scale. And we have introduced a lot of new features now where it can take if you have say RV tools extract or other things, you can just integrate that and you can do a deep dive portfolio analysis. You can also give unstructured data like CMDB exports. If you're meeting notes or business context, you can provide all of that. It also has support to convert your on-prem data, like it was supporting NSX, but now we have expanded it to Palo Alto, FortiGate, Cisco ACI. It has got support for all of that. Next, please. Next slide. The other big thing is Windows, right? Like we have still a lot of customers who runs Windows virtual machines with Windows servers, and they are running applications with .NET framework, which has all the Windows dependencies, and then we have SQL Server. So this all ties you to licenses, right? We can get license freedom by using AWS Transform for Windows modernization. Again, multiple ways of doing it. You can do large scale modernization, or you can do it one project at a time. We have got the IDE extensions as well. But what it basically does is it takes the .NET framework code, converts it into cross-platform .NET, so now it can run on Linux, and you get Windows independence. We also have the capability, AWS Transform can take your SQL Server, convert it into Amazon Aurora Postgres, again giving you license independence. Move on, please. So again, let's skip this slide. Next slide, please. Perfect. So this is the mother of all, mainframe. What do you do with mainframe? And this is where you can actually use Amazon AWS Transform for mainframe application. And this is just not simple, replatforming. This is where you would be completely reimagining the monolithic mainframe application and convert it into a modern architecture using microservices. The way you do that is you start with reverse engineering, where you analyze your COBOL code, your database schemas, you have the business logic, what the database patterns are, what are the different integration interfaces, what are the NFRs and such. And then based on that, you will create or extract out all the detailed business logic here. You are also going to get the activity metrics, and all this data is what's going to prepare you for the modernization. And then you apply the forward engineering, where you take that business logic and start developing modern application code with modernized data, and you can do infrastructure as code and such, right? So the focus here is how to take the legacy code and completely reimagine it and build it in a very modern stack and deploy it on AWS cloud. Moving on. Yeah, so I think we can skip this. I think I have covered everything which I wanted to under dev tools, development tools. As I mentioned at the very start, don't think of this as tools. Think of this as your extended team. Who can work autonomously, who can modernize your legacy applications, can help you reduce your technical debt, can help develop as well as operate your infrastructure at scale. I think I'm done. Moving on, Sandeep, I'll hand this over to you. Thank you all.
Hey, Salil, thank you so much. So am I audible?
Good.
Okay. I'm Sandeep Mehta, Senior Solutions Architect, and I'm going to cover Bedrock Agent Core. Now, Salil did talk about the developers tools, which uses AI, and Ananya talked about the LLM models. So what you do, you develop a code, and you test it out. You may use LLMs to build your code and you know about the LLM, what it offers you. Different LLMs are available in Bedrock. But now then there is a question that you want to productionize this. So how do you do that? Bedrock Agent Core does this solve this problem very easily because it does provide you all the features required to productionize your code. Um, can you move the slide, please? Okay, so at high level, what is Bedrock Agent Core? As it says, you build, deploy, and operate. Uh, in your journey for development is how the development path is changing. The future is more about developing using AI and also build agents which does the work for you. And you want to do this securely at a scale, and you want to use a framework and a model which AI can use and which complements AI. And at the end result, you would get a beautiful application what you want to deliver to your customer. So there are multiple things here. You need the infrastructure, you need the compute, you would need memory, and that is provided by a Bedrock Agent Core. And we have components like gateway, memory, browser, and code interpreter. I would talk about that. But does what does this do? AI follows certain protocols. Most of you already know what is model context protocol. That is a new version how you communicate. Your code will communicate with different data sources and connects with the internal and external data sources to communicate. Then you have agent to agent communication. Now this is a new development which has come recently in last year. When you have multiple agents now, those becomes part of your components of your workflow. And when you have agent to agent protocol, not only you can communicate between the internal agents of your code, but you can also communicate with external agents or third party agents or the agents from offered or published by your partners. And we also have open telemetry which supports all these things. Now, when you deploy this securely at scale, you need this run at runtime, you need identity management, and you need policies. Now, when you have deployed this and your systems are running, you definitely want to know how your system is performing. For that, you have evaluations, which I will talk in the subsequent slide. But you also want to do the observability. You want to know what happens when your code is executed, who is accessing your application, which APIs are being called. So this observability is built in as a part of Bedrock Agent Core. Behind the scene, we use CloudWatch, but it is available on the platform of Agent Core. Now, as I talked about the framework earlier, that AI and framework complement each other because AI needs a framework to deliver a code and build the logic. So there are multiple open source framework and third-party frameworks. So you can see here Strengths, LangChain, Llama Index, Crew AI, OpenAI, Clore agent. So this any of this framework can be used and the code can be deployed into agent core. Next slide, please. So now we go a little deeper on how it works. So develop the core for agent. Let's say you are using strengths agents, and it would help you build the code with the prompts with the natural language. Now you want to deploy this code, you don't have to worry about building the infrastructure. Agent Core will provide you serverless infrastructure, not only compute, but also memory. The memory could be short-term memory and long-term memory. As you know, in the AI world, memory is very important. Many of you have already used ChatGPT or any third-party applications like open source like Perplexity or tried, for example, any Bedrock model. available on Bedrock, like Anthropic. So this all does have short-term and long-term memory, because when you ask a question and then it requires, if you ask a follow-up question, it does have to bring that context for you and to answer back to you, right? So what else it gives? It gives you certain tools to build this and run these executables. So you can crawl websites, you can go through various pages of external websites, and you can derive the information. Agent can get those things. It's called browser. Another capability is called code interpreter. So you can also deploy a code at a runtime in a secured sandbox. Now, that code also can be improved when the agents get the feedback, and it can enhance and perform much more every time iteratively. So gateway is another thing where you can call, and you can call various APIs kind of scenario where you want to connect to the data sources. So gateway is your solution, and it makes the agent discoverable and accessible. Um, Now, other than that, you need identity, because for security, you definitely want to know who is accessing your production application, and you can define who can get the access and who cannot get the access. Other than this, these controls can be emphasized through the policy. So there is a new feature which has come. We'll see that in the next slide. Next thing, observability is followed after that, but let's talk about policy now. So what happens is when you want to execute certain policies, now you would be able to do it at the gateway level, meaning any calls going out and making any queries and trying to figure out or fetch the data, for example, it can have the policies embedded within the gateway. So there would be one policy engine per gateway, and you don't have to write these policies. You can do this through natural language policy engine, meaning you would write in plain English and it would create the policy for you. So this is one of the key feature which the many corporates would love, because now they have security just by providing as a business requirement, and it would do the job. Next slide, please. Okay, so what is evaluation? Evaluation is a new feature. So you want to know, when you develop the code, you have created the workflow. In your workflow, there may be more than one agent. There could be orchestration, there could be sub agents, there could be browser, code interpreter, and so forth. Now, agents are performing. You don't know how well these agents are performing unless you have something called as evaluations. Now remember, like earlier, there was a scenario in the legacy system where you would have rule-based engines. But here you are asking agents to reason, plan, and take action on your behalf. And for that, you have told agents what to do. And you want to measure now how the agents are performing. So Amazon has come up with 13 inbuilt such evaluations, and you can add more of your own and custom. You can create your custom evaluations, and it would give you, and you can define the sampling rate. This screen doesn't show much. The fonts are really small on the example screenshots, but if you see on the rightmost, it continuously monitor and it tells you how your agents are performing on the parameter which is defined on the leftmost box when you configure those. Next slide, please. Okay, so that's all about first how you deploy this, how you productionize your application. I'm going to add few more things here so that you know what we announced in reInvent 2025 in this December, I mean last December. Now what you can do earlier when you were asking question, right? And you were getting the answer from the model. That's how typically Gen AI works. You give a prompt and you get a response. And agentic AI also use the bedrock models. What happens is earlier you had a standard response time, and now we have given more flexibility in that. We have increased certain, we have classified this into three separate queues. One would be the highest priority queue, which would be more for your real-time end user interaction and mission critical applications. And that would get higher priority and you would get responses much quicker. The other one is a standard which we already had, which would go through your non-critical applications and your standard applications. And the third one is more like where you don't have to worry too much about the response time or latency in getting the response back. So this is more, we say, let's say that you have non-interactive model evaluations. And for that, we give you flex. Now, what are the benefits of this? Because first thing is when we give higher priority, it would serve your purpose and it would serve your end customer. And when we give you flex, what happens is your cost will go down because it would cost you lesser if when you use flex, and it would cost you a little higher when you use the priority queue. Can we move to the next slide? Okay, so I believe many of you already know what is fine tuning. And there are two types of fine tuning. One is supervised fine tuning, where you give the input and output, and it would require a large data set. And it requires more compute and it would take more time. Now, to solve that, we have reinforcement fine tuning. And how it works is that you give a set of a prompt or a set of small input. It's a representative set. Let's say you don't have the data set you want. You don't have to worry now. You just give the prompt and you give them direction. It would require a very small input and it would create the outputs for you. And you figure out a way to give the scoring for that, right? So there will be a scoring strategy which you can use. Once you have the scoring strategy, it would fine tune automatically for you. And our observation is that it improves the quality of response by more than 60% compared to the base model. So this is some food for thought when you are interested to fine tune your models. Next slide. Okay, so this is, I think, the last slide which I'm presenting here. So this is one of the key feature. It goes along with the different LLMs which Ananya presented. But here what we came up with is that Amazon Bedrock knowledge base now can do multimodal embedding. So earlier you were able to process the document and images. Now you can also feed the audio and video files, and it can give you an output based on all these different inputs. So it can simultaneously work on this, and you can query and get the required output, and then that prompt will be augmented, a typical Gen AI flow, and then you would give it to a LLM model of your choice. Here in the diagram, we are showing Nova or Claude, and you would get an answer. So if you see in any practical scenario, you could have different type of formats. And now if Amazon Bedrock knowledge base is able to process those, it's an extremely powerful thing according to me. So I would definitely recommend if any one of you have try build the knowledge base to try this new feature. With that, we would be taking the questions at the end. So I would hand it over to Cameron.
Thank you, Sandeep, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Cameron Dibai, and we've saved the best for last. I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about my favorite thing, which is networking. So, Meera, if you'll go to the next slide, please. So the first announcement is sort of network adjacent, but it kind of ties back into something that Sandeep was talking about earlier in the Agent Core slides. This is MCP support in API Gateway. So API Gateway is our service for creating, managing, securing APIs at scale. And with this integration between API Gateway and the Agent Core Gateway, you can basically take REST APIs that you already have in place that, like as you can see in the slide here, may be accessed by sort of traditional microservice clients, and you can present those APIs as MCP compatible endpoints, so they can be used as tools by your agents. So the Agent Core Gateway basically handles the authentication on the inbound side from the MCP client, and also on the outbound call to the API Gateway. All the protocol translation happens for you automatically here. And it basically allows your agents to look up and discover those APIs as tools effectively. This feature is now GA, and it's available everywhere that Agent Core exists in all those regions. So next slide, please. All right, so this slide's the first true network topic, and it is AWS Interconnect Multi-Cloud. What this is a way to provision private high-speed connectivity between AWS and other public clouds. So the idea of having communications like this between public clouds is not new. Before this announcement, you could do this, but what's important is the way that it's done. So previously, you would have to go deploy direct connections on the AWS side. You would have to deploy, I think they call it Cloud Connect or something on the GCP side. Land those connections on routers either in your data center that you own, or potentially use a third-party cloud router like a Megaport or Equinix. Basically stitch all the routing together, do all the work to create that communication path. With AWS Interconnect, everything is provisioned as a managed service. So all the BGP neighbor peerings, the data link encryption with MACsec is all handled as a part of the service deployment. It's all managed for you, and you basically get this entity called an interconnect in your AWS account that you can just attach to your direct connect gateway and enable that communication to happen. This is in preview right now. I think it's available in 5 regions, and at the moment, GCP is the only other public cloud that interoperates here. But we're expecting later this year to see other clouds being offered as well. So if you work in a multi-cloud environment, this could be of interest. Next slide, please. So next is the Amazon Route 53 Global Resolver. You are probably already familiar with Route 53, which is our DNS service. What the Route 53 Public Resolver is a way, it's basically a publicly accessible resolver endpoint that you can use to resolve both public domains and your internal AWS hosted domains as well. Basically, when you provision the global resolver, you get a dedicated set of resolver IP addresses that are called anycast addresses. So if you've ever, in your home network used like 8.8.8.8 like to do DNS against, that address works from anywhere in the world and gets answered by something that's close to you. Same sort of concept applies here. When you provision global resolver, you get dedicated anycast addresses that are for your resolver. Those will work from anywhere in the world, and they will route those queries to the nearest AWS region to be answered. What this gets you is if you have branch offices, data centers, remote employees, you can basically point everybody to the same IP address for their DNS resolution. You can monitor and log all those queries centrally in one place. And you can also apply security around them. So if you want to, filter based on, categories, whatever that may be, malware or gambling or what have you, you can apply those policies all in one spot and ensure that your entire organization globally is getting the same kind of treatment. So, and this is in preview currently. Next slide, please. So next is the VPC regional NAT gateway. So again, if you've spent any time working in AWS, you're probably familiar with NAT gateway. So NAT gateway is an address translation service that is very commonly used in a scenario where you have compute workloads, EC2 instances that need to be able to send communications outbound to the internet, reach out to download patches, et cetera. But you want those workloads to not be able to have any inbound communication coming from the internet. So very commonly, you'll put your workloads into a private subnet, then you will send their traffic to a NAT gateway that sits in a public subnet. It translates all their addresses and forwards that communication out to the internet. So that's always been there, but NAT gateway has always been a zonal service, meaning that if, like in this diagram on the slide, you see if you're deployed across multiple availability zones, which you always should be for best practices, you would need to put a NAT gateway in each of the availability zones that you're using. That also means that the route tables in those different availability zones need to be unique because they would direct traffic to the NAT gateway in NAT AZ. So with regional NAT gateway, it eliminates some of that complexity. In fact, you no longer need public subnets at all. You can just define a regional NAT gateway. Your route tables in both availability zones would be the same because they point to the same entity, which is this regional NAT gateway. Functionally, it works the same way. It translates all of your IP addresses. It scales horizontally based on load. It just creates a simpler way to construct the same kind of an architecture. For what it's worth, the zonal or traditional NAT gateway is still available. And there are certain use cases where that's actually the correct choice. But if you don't have a use case that sort of requires that zonal behavior, this is a way to sort of simplify your communications. So next slide, please. All right, so this one is routing policies announced for AWS Cloud WAN. This is my favorite announcement in a long time for anything, specifically because in my past life, I was a customer and I had a dozen data centers and 2 public clouds, and it was my job to connect everything. And this is a feature that we very much needed, and it simply wasn't available from any cloud provider at the time. And so if you're not familiar with Cloud WAN, it is a networking service that allows you to interconnect VPCs and on-prem locations across multiple regions around the world. If you may be familiar with Transit Gateway, a lot more people have maybe used that in the past, which is sort of a regional way to create a hub and spoke kind of architecture. Cloud WAN is like that, but on a global scale. And the feature that was announced is the addition of routing policies. And essentially, routing policies let you manage the routes in your Cloud WAN. You can filter routes, you can summarize routes, you can modify BGP attributes to engineer traffic flows in scenarios where there's more than one way to get to the same destination. It really brings some of the fundamental capabilities that you would have in a traditional on-prem network, stuff that's just been around forever and has never been available for use in cloud networking. And now we've brought that into Cloud WAN, and it is, if you're in that sort of a world where you need to have control over these kind of fine-tuning parameters, it's really fantastic. So I am super happy to see that being added. Next slide, please. I think this is my last slide. This is VPC encryption controls. So, we obviously at Amazon, we say security is job zero, right? And within AWS, we provide a lot of tools and mechanisms for you to secure your environment. Encryption is one of the sort of fundamental ingredients that goes into that. And so what VPC encryption controls is all about is being able to ensure that all of your data in transit in the VPC is being encrypted, and to be able to validate that for compliance purposes. So the way that it works is it has two operating modes. The first is monitor mode, so that you can assess the situation, figure out which of your communications are encrypted and which are not. So you may, if you've read much about AWS, you may have heard of something called the Nitro system, which is our kind of hypervisor technology that's underneath a lot of our services. Things that operate on Nitro, like EC2 instances, for example, that are deployed on Nitro, have all their communications encrypted at the hardware level by default, automatically. But not everything runs on Nitro today. And so with VPC encryption controls, you can put it into monitor mode. You can assess where you have gaps. For any services like application load balancers, anything like containers that run on our Fargate compute service, those things through this tool can be transparently migrated onto Nitro. No downtime, no reconfiguration of anything to make sure that those are addressed. For other resources, like if you have older generation EC2 instances that aren't on Nitro, you can either work to migrate those to newer instance classes, or you can encrypt that traffic just at the application layer with, like, TLS type encryption. Once you've made all the changes you want to make to close the gaps, you then switch into the enforce mode, which essentially will not permit any unencrypted data in transit through your VPC. So gives you a way to prove to your auditors that you're meeting all the compliance requirements, and to ensure that you're secure. And I believe that's my last slide. So with that, I will say thank you and turn it back over to Jeremy.
Thanks, Cameron, and the rest of you. That was great. We have a few minutes remaining. And anybody that wants to go over is welcome to, but we want to be respectful of the time of our presenters. Q&A. Love to hear any questions from those in attendance. Any thoughts on what you've heard? Any cool applications? Johnny, I see your hand up.
Yes. Give me a second to turn my camera on there. First of all, Jeremy, thanks for putting this together and bringing all the speakers. This was fantastic. I feel like I just got back from reInvent. I did attend actually the year after COVID, and it was an amazing experience. But everything that y'all talked about today wasn't really talked about much back then. I can really see the evolution and the lean towards AI inclusion and everything. My question is for Salil. I think it was, what was the product name? I'm drawing a blank. Kiro. I want to know a little bit more about the differences between Kiro and Claude Code. I use Claude Code heavily, and a lot of the things that you were talking about, it sounded like can be done in Kiro as well. Is that really just for cloud-based usage, or is it, do they work hand in hand, or just considered an alternative?
Salil, are you there, or you want one of us to answer?
I mean, I was speaking on mute. Thank you, Meera. So that's a great question. So what AWS provides you is, with Kiro, it also provides you an entire ecosystem, right? Like with Cloud Code and such, yes, I can develop faster, and it has the same ID capabilities. And most of these tools which you will see, Cursor, Cloud Code, Kiro, and all, they reach feature parity very soon, right? So if there are some features which is available in one tool and not in other, give it a few months, and those features will be there. So the feature parity is very quick. But what Kiro provides you, as I said, is the entire ecosystem. So yes, I can develop faster, but does that always equate to deploying faster? Not always, right? Because I have to follow the same SDLC process. So there will be a lot of bottlenecks there. First, I need to ensure that any code I am developing, it complies with my security best practices, my coding practices, my architecture, decisions which we all follow within the enterprise. So we need to work within those constraints. And then once you do that, how do you scale that up quicker, right? So that is where autonomous agents come in, where it can scale the entire, instead of doing smaller tasks, you can now start building entire features at one go, having multiple agents working in unison to deliver that. You have the security agents, which will make sure that security is validated right from the design to code reviews all the way to penetration testing, right? So to make sure that everything is in place. Again, as I said, you can deploy faster, but that also sometimes mean faster error rates. So how do you handle that with DevOps agent? So that's where the entire ecosystem comes into play, where we use it to develop, but then we have other tools which very easily plugs in and helps you not only build faster but also deploy faster.
Now, how do you interact with it? Is it a single terminal like you would with Claude Code?
Oh, it has got an interface. I mean, it's a Kiro. If you, I'll drop the link. Feel
Okay.
free to download and play with it. As
The
I said,
standalone IDE.
yeah, it's a
Okay.
standalone ID, but it also has a CLI, so you can operate it both the ways. And again, if you all are interested in separate Kiro session, just let us know, and probably I can coordinate with Jeremy, and maybe have a Kiro session. We can do some kind of workshop where you will also get hands-on with the different features. Again, we don't go and speak on features of other competitors or other products, right? We can speak on what we provide. So we can show you what are the capabilities of Kiro, and we can go from there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and certainly that's something we've got our dates nailed down when we want to do the in-person meetups, and we've experimented with sort of the lab style in a few of them over the last couple of years, and had pretty good outcomes with that. So that's certainly, if the interest is out there on something like a hands-on with Kiro, or maybe a slightly more abstract topic where Kiro is part of the tool set to get there. Certainly that sort of applied lab workshop style in-person topic maybe something that we can facilitate if the interest is there. So I'd encourage anybody else that's here too to let us know, what do you want to see and what do you want to hear about in the coming years, and we can do what we can to pull together a good session on that. Thanks again for the question, Johnny.
Great question, Johnny. And I can attest our customers out there are asking for Kiro workshops, Kiro hackathons. Also, the Nova was very interesting. We have a lot of customers that want to expand into international markets. And so being able to use that multi-language is really impactful, because they can take and design, if you think of your marketing organizations, they can take that same marketing information and translate it, or even onboarding, processes and materials, and translate that into different languages is really impactful for a lot of business. So that's been a really great feature for us as well.
So one thing that Salil mentioned when he was answering, I think it was him that was speaking when he said this, was sort of not commenting on other products. When I asked the question, I was just thinking Claude Code was an Amazon product. I know that they've invested a lot of money in it, but I guess it's not really considered under the Amazon umbrella.
Yeah, let me just answer the other part of the question that you are asking. So, I mean, although Claude Code is not our direct product, but we use Claude models. So, essentially, what Claude Code provides in a nutshell is what is coming out of the model underlying, right?
Okay.
So Kiro has, like, all those LLMs embedded plus some more. Like in Kiro, you can choose some of those Claude models and some other models as well. So you get like little more variety, and also like some additional things, like the pricing is little different in Kiro. For example, the spec driven development is little unique for Kiro, things like that you get.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.